The Dallas Cowboys are in a very difficult predicament, and this is coming from someone that's been a lifelong fan of theirs. And realistically, they're going to have to make a lot of difficult decisions, and I know by the end of it, I'm probably going to be banging my head against the wall because I am used to seeing a lot of decisions that personally don't make a lot of sense to me. Now, before we get to the content, I wanted to let you guys know we're giving away $500 to a subscriber that turns on our notifications on this channel. We're also giving away an additional $500 to any of my Instagram followers. All you have to do is follow me on Instagram. Now that we get all that out of the way, break! Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? Stop me if you've ever heard this story before. A team that has Super Bowl aspirations starts out the season performing really well against teams that aren't necessarily the best teams. Of course, they did hold their own against the Super Bowl champions in week 1, but as time progressed on, the wheels fell off the wagon, and eventually you saw the Dallas Cowboys for who they exactly were. They fell short below their expectations. They got destroyed by the San Francisco 49ers. And for those of you guys that say that Dak Prescott's QB draw was officiated incorrectly, personally, I will say this over and over again, the Cowboys shouldn't have been in that situation to begin with. If you're a team with Super Bowl aspirations, you should be able to put up some offense against another playoff team if you want to progress in the NFL playoffs. Needless to say, as a result of the Cowboys falling short below expectations, there were initial concerns over the beginning of the offseason. What's going to happen to Dan Quinn? What's going to happen to Kellen Moore? Are the Dallas Cowboys potentially going to lose both or either of them? Ultimately, both Kellen Moore and Dan Quinn made it through the hiring cycle, and the Dallas Cowboys fortunately were able to retain both as their coordinators, which I cannot begin to emphasize how game-changing that might be, especially if you're an individual that thinks the Dallas Cowboys' success is 100% based upon Kellen Moore's play calling, which, to be honest, I'm not one of those people, but some people are, so I'll respect your opinions. Personally, I felt like Dan Quinn was the more important individual to retain, but I digress. This is where things get very tricky, however. The Dallas Cowboys enter the offseason in a situation where they really don't have much wiggle room to get better. As a matter of fact, they are set to look significantly worse than they did last year. This is because they have the third worst cap situation in the entire NFL. To give you an idea, the LA Rams currently have a better cap situation than the Dallas Cowboys, although not by much, but on top of that, they are over the cap by $22 million, which is trailing only the Green Bay Packers and the New Orleans Saints. So that is most definitely not a situation you'd want to be in if you want to run it back next year with a team that looks more or less the same, which means the Cowboys are going to have to make a lot of difficult decisions. Personally, I've never agreed with the way that the Dallas Cowboys have allocated their salary cap money. If you look at this table, their highest paid player is Dak Prescott, which is fairly typical. A quarterback is usually your highest paid player. And then after that, you have DeMarcus Lawrence, then Amari Cooper, and then Zach Martin and Ezekiel Elliott, then Tyron Smith and La'el Collins. Personally, I love the fact that the Dallas Cowboys signed the anchors of their offensive line to big contracts. I think that's exactly how it should be, especially when you consider the fact that the Dallas Cowboys have created an identity over the past 10 years and even before that during their Jimmy Johnson days, just based off of a very good offensive line. Now, this is where I get a little bit frustrated, and it's the fact that the Dallas Cowboys also did what I consider to be one of the cardinal sins for a NFL franchise to do, and that's overpaying a running back. Now, I love Ezekiel Elliott, and when you draft a running back with a top 5 pick, especially over a player like Jalen Ramsey, then of course you would hope that you would be able to pay him the money that he is currently getting paid. However, if you watched Cowboy games this past year, Ezekiel Elliott didn't look nearly as dominant as he once did, although the statistics aren't going to show that. He still rushed for over 1,000 yards, although he had an extra game to do it, and he performed better than he did last year, but it's been a while since I looked at Ezekiel Elliott and thought this is a dominant running back that is going to definitely move the chains for us. But to his credit, he has been healthy more recently, and that's, I guess, all you could ask from Ezekiel Elliott. Also, I feel like his value is mainly in the fact that he is a tremendous pass protector, especially for a running back, which means in order to get through this really ugly cap situation, they're going to have to look into potentially moving on from Amari Cooper or DeMarcus Lawrence, or possibly both. The argument for DeMarcus Lawrence is, although he is one of the premium pass rushers in the NFL when he is healthy, over the past couple of years, he hasn't been nearly as dominant. I mean, ever since his 14.5 sack season in 2017 and then his 10.5 sack season in 2018, there was a significant drop off in the amount of times that DeMarcus Lawrence has been able to get to the quarterback. And of course, this past year, he failed to stay healthy, and the defensive line for the Dallas Cowboys seemed to hold just fine. But then you have Amari Cooper, who for some reason, it seems like Amari Cooper has been getting targeted by the Dallas Cowboys front office a lot this past year. Like over and over again throughout the past offseason, you've had Stephen Jones and Jerry Jones come out and saying things like they were disappointed by Amari Cooper's lack of production. And when you look at Amari Cooper's production, I mean, bear in mind he did play 15 games this past year. It's nothing like it looked like in 2020, of course, but it wasn't necessarily as horrible as most of them make it seem. I mean, he is still averaging 12.7 yards per reception, which is better than what he was averaging in 2020. He was targeted 26 times less, and I guess you could make the reasonable argument that this is more of an issue that pertains to Dak Prescott not finding him enough, as opposed to Amari Cooper not getting open enough, because Amari Cooper, in my opinion, is still a top 3 route runner in the NFL. Well, the Dallas Cowboys recently had an opportunity to instill some faith in Amari Cooper, but Stephen Jones once again was non-committal about Amari Cooper's future in Dallas. When he was asked at the scouting combine if Amari Cooper would stay on the roster this season, Stephen Jones said that it is too early for me to address that yet. We're continuing to have conversations. A lot of things affect that. There are some moving parts to that we'll have to continue to massage as we move forward. Now, this is where things get a little complicated, because it's actually funny. You have Jones also saying that I want Ezekiel Elliott on my team. He's a damn good running back, and I think he's going to help us win this year. Obviously, his contract, his money is guaranteed. He's going to be here, no question. We're fortunate to have him. Ezekiel Elliott provides a lot of utility, and I'll agree with that. He's more than just a running back. He is probably one of the best, if not the best, blocking running back in the entire NFL. But when you look at Amari Cooper, and I hate to say this, I think he's a luxury that the Dallas Cowboys just can't afford right now, especially when you consider the fact that the Cowboys can clear $16 million in cap space just by cutting him or trading him. And believe me, there's a lot of NFL teams that would absolutely love the opportunity to trade for Amari Cooper. And if you look at the contingency plan that the Cowboys would have in place, once moving on from Amari Cooper, their wide receiver core still doesn't look that bad. Assuming they sign Michael Gallup to a cheap 1-year prove-it deal to go alongside CeeDee Lamb, maybe you bring back Cedric Wilson. I don't know what the market is for him, but maybe bring him back on a modest deal as well. Obviously, your wide receiver core takes a hit. You're losing a top 3 route runner in the entire NFL, but regardless, it does make sense because I feel like the Cowboys have an embarrassment of riches at the wide receiver position, so I wouldn't necessarily blame them for moving on from Amari Cooper. Ultimately, this situation is going to be very interesting to watch the Cowboys sift out, and this is significant because it also means one of the premier wide receivers in the NFL could be available for trade, and it seems like the Cowboys don't really value him as one of the premier wide receivers in the NFL. Maybe they actually think Amari Cooper is having a fall from grace. I don't know. Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think about all this. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike. I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.